Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're brand new here, I'm Joni Young. Thanks for joining me today for this painting tutorial on how to paint 3 trees using a filbert brush. I'll also be using a little round brush for some smaller details and tree trunks, and a few different greens and other colors I'll have listed below this video in the description box. If you're interested in the brushes I'm using today, I'll have a link below for those as well. So let's jump in and get started. I'm really excited to show you guys some different techniques today, and I think you're going to be surprised at what you can do with this one fantastic little brush. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start the painting firstly by painting the entire canvas compost blue and a little bit of white to create some depth. So I'm just going to show you a quick and easy way to paint your canvas a lot easier. And I'm going to use a bit of a larger brush for this. I'm going to use my number 30 filbert brush. And what I like to do is just get a little bit of water. Okay, so before we do anything, I want to pre-paint my canvas a light blue. You can choose any blue that you want. I'm going to do a pretty sky blue. The color and paint I'm using is Compost Blue number 1 by Holbein. I'm going to add the paint with a 30 filbert brush. First, I'm going to take a little bit of water. Now, here's a really good tip and trick for you guys. If you're having trouble and struggling and blending and spreading your paint across the canvas, you're finding that you're losing your paint with one stroke, add a little bit of water, just lightly mist or brush on a touch of water on your canvas right before you add the paint, and you'll get it done a lot quicker. Your paint will go further this way, and you'll enjoy the process a lot more. Okay, so I'm just going to directly add on some paint here. And I'm going to take a little bit of white first, and I'm going to start adding that along the top. Then I'm going to pick up the blue and just gently start adding it, painting back and forth. Get those sides covered, but I haven't gone back for any water or any more paint. See how effortless it is when you add a little bit of water to your canvas first. Just be mindful to not add too much water, otherwise your paint's just going to run right off the canvas. Okay, I still have quite a bit of paint on my brush. I want to gradiate a little bit more, and I'm going to take some more of the white, and I'm just going to kind of tap and dab around here. Tap and dab. And then blend that out. Now this will just give us the illusion of some misty clouds back there. It'll help to create the perspective in this painting and a nice backdrop. I'm going to rinse that brush out, and I'm going to show you a nice, easy way to blend your acrylics that are wet and kind of streaky looking like that and rough looking. I'm going to take a dry mop brush. It's nice and soft, it's synthetic, and I'm just going to lightly go around in circles. You'll create a little bit of movement in those clouds by doing this. And then just gently finish it off. You can always add a little bit more white, a little bit like this. And as the paint starts to dry, it'll get a little more challenging. So you want to make sure that you have a dry and clean brush to start. and your paint is wet. Otherwise, you won't be able to do this. Okay, so I'm going to finish off blending the rest of that out. And then we're going to start coming in with our trees. Don't forget to rinse your brushes out thoroughly. Okay, I'm just going to take my hair dryer and completely dry this off, and then we're going to come in with our first tree. We're going to be painting cypress trees first. So for these trees today, I'm going to be using a 14 filbert brush and a number 3 round brush. If you're interested in the brushes I'm using today, there's a 5-piece here available, and they're all cruelty-free. And I'll have a link below where you can check those out. So I'm going to start off with the number 3 round brush, and we're going to paint a tree trunk. So like I said, we're going to start with some cypress trees, and I'm going to go smallest to biggest here up in the corner. I'll give you an idea of perspective as well, and not just how to paint the tree itself, but how to create a scene with them and make it look like there's distance. So I'm just going to get my brush a little bit wet, a little bit of water here, and I'm going to take a little bit of black and a little bit of brown. The full list for the colors I'm using today will be in the description box below. And I have titanium white, light olive green, sap green, Mars black, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and primary yellow. So I'll just take my brush and add a line. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. And we'll start our first one there. And we'll take a little bit more paint. And we're going to start this one down a little bit lower. And have it end a little bit higher. And we're going to take a little bit more water if you need it. I need a bit of water to help release that paint out of my brush. And then I'm going to keep going down. It's almost like if you were painting a fence and wanting to create distance. You're just going to keep painting them shorter and shorter and shorter and closer together until they just disappear into the distance. Okay, I'm going to rinse this brush out. Now we're going to use the filbert brush. I'm not going to get my brush wet at all. I don't want to thin the paint out and have it possibly look see-through. So what I'm going to do is just take a little bit of black and a little bit of my sap green. And I'm going to start with the ones farther away. So with a filbert brush, they're really cool because you can just load the end up like that and turn it to make narrow lines for these smaller trees that are in the distance. All we have to do is just tap like that. Just tap little lines because they're farther away. And then as we get closer to us in the foreground, we're going to tap a little bit more. Push and tap, make them a little bit fuller. And then we're going to start leaving a little space for the tree trunk. Let's get a little bit more mixed up on our brush here. This big one right up here. These are those beautiful tall cypress trees that you see in the Tuscan hills with all the beautiful farmhouses and villas and vineyards. Okay, then I'm going to take a little bit of light olive green. We want to do this. You can wash your brush out or you can apply this to a dirty brush. I kind of like adding it to my brush that still has a little bit of the dark green and the black in because I get a few more shades of green in there. And what you want to do is just choose which side you want the light to be hitting your trees. So let's just start adding a little bit to the right side of each of these trees Just a light little push and tap. Take a little bit more green. And so on and so on. Remember, we're just adding it to one side so that we can create something that looks 3D by adding light on one side and shadow on the other. Okay, and then we'll just simply lightly tap a little bit of those ones that disappear off into the distance. Now, right now, I know you're thinking these trees are just floating in the sky, but we're going to change that in just a moment. I'm going to show you a little bit extra in this video than just painting trees. So I'm going to take a little bit of white now, a little bit of yellow, along with that green. Let's just take a little bit more of that primary yellow. And let's add a little bit more light. Now I'm putting a little bit of pressure, focusing on the side of the brush. I'm kind of tapping on an angle because of how the branches of these trees grow. So the placement of your brush and how you're tapping it, the angle and everything, can play a huge role in creating the type of tree you want. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out now, and I'm going to add, dried it off, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt sienna to my brush. Just a tiny bit of that burnt sienna, a little bit of white, and we're going to start adding a sloping hill, just a little bit right there. So see how skinny it is, and very just tiny. I'm just going to take my finger, just smear it to make it disappear into the distance, and then we're going to start to take our brush and go side to side like this, making longer, fuller and wider brush strokes. Take a little bit of white and brighten that up a little bit. Now let's just continue adding this path here, path or road. You'll see these trees on either side of both. Sometimes they're just in the middle of the field. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of white and just lightly go over some of these areas, create a little bit more sunlight, light on the path, not everywhere. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out. I'm going to go back over to my round brush again and just kind of come underneath here. Little scoop, scoop, scoop. Little tap for extra shadows. You can pull a little line this way to the left, just like following with a shadow on the left side. And then I'll just take a little bit of green in with that black. And we're just gonna a little bit of grass or some weeds. Kind of growing on the edge of our path or road here, and then going over a little bit of that area as well. Take a little bit of the light green and a little bit of yellow and add a few little bits, little dabs here, and don't over blend anything. Let's take a little bit of white and with that yellow and green. Being quite carefree with where I'm adding it. Okay, so you get an idea of these cypress trees now. Let's move on to the next type of tree I want to show you how to paint. And that is a weeping willow. So I really love weeping willow trees. I like to add them quite often to my paintings. And I like to show you guys different types of techniques and ways to approach painting them so that you find one of those ways that I'm showing you that will work for you. So I'm going to take my round brush. This is number 3 round brush again. A little bit of water on my brush and some burnt sienna and some black. And with weeping willow trees, the type I'm going to show you today is going to be a little bit shorter so that we have some room for some other trees, and I'm going to partially go over this path here. So we're just going to start right about here with a pointy end of my brush, and then I'm going to start to push gently the full width and kind of wiggle and bring it down here. I'm going to take quite a bit of paint here because I'm going to use all this. And we're just going to start to add a little curve in here, giving this tree some character, so sort of an S shape. And then bring those big old tree roots down straight to the bottom. Now I want you guys to watch and see what I'm doing with my fingers and the brush before I put it on the canvas and actually paint. I'm going to show you my fingers are rolling the brush like this. I'm going to do this as I'm traveling around with the brush to make some really neat branches. Now you can do this technique or apply this technique to lots of different trees, not just a weeping willow tree, but lots of different trees. It adds a lot of character, and I love painting trees. I just love trees that have a lot of character. Okay, so then I'm just going to take a little bit of water on my brush, and I'm just going to start lightly pulling. You can even turn the brush this way with your finger over. Get a little bit more water. Now you can do this with the filbert brush too, and I'm going to show you. So see how this is already starting to look like a weeping willow tree just by this little brush stroke and technique alone. I'm not leaving very much room for painting other trees. I might just have to get another canvas altogether after this. But I really want to focus on this tree. And I had to paint it a little bit bigger to fit all those details in clearly so that you guys can see. Now what I want to do, I just washed my brush off. I'm going to take a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow ochre, and burnt sienna. You don't necessarily have to mix all 3 colors up to make one. It's kind of nice to have a marbled effect, but I want to add the light. I'm going to add the light on the right side, just like I did with the cypress trees. And I'm going to start kind of right about here, just slightly pulling and dragging to make it look like rough tree bark. A lot of this is going to be covered up, camouflaged with the green, but I want to show you how you can add some light. So again, picking up my light colors, same colors we used on our path or a road there. And let's now go over to our filbert brush. Again, I'm using number 14. And I'm not even worried that this still might be wet here. I like to pick up a little bit of that sometimes just because it'll help create some darker shades that I can build up from and make it look more 3D and have some shadows. So I'm just going to start with some of the dark green. There's a little bit of black in there, and we're going to apply the same brush stroke that we did with the round brush. Now you can also kind of pull these little arches and then work off of those. Now I like to paint some of them coming right down to the ground. So this is just the first few layers. Hope you guys are picking up some great tips here and learning about taking the time to apply the paint in layers to build up to your nice highlights, helping to make the painting have a little bit more life to it. That's what we're really trying to do and what I'm showing you guys. Okay, the next color, without washing my brush out, you can have a clean brush or a dirty brush like me. You just want to just kind of push into that light olive green and start adding some of this. Now I'm going to start to add another technique in here, but I want to just do this first before I show you the next technique. This gives you that really kind of blurry soft look that makes the weeping willow trees look so graceful. But then you start to tap a little bit, and I'll show you that in just a minute so we can see a little bit more texture. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow. Let's stick with this green here. Yellow and a little bit of white on the end of the brush. And I'm going to just start to tap a little bit. Little gentle taps. I'm just using the end of my brush and I'm tapping on the side. Now you can go straight down, straight, holding your brush like this, or on an angle. You can go both ways, kind of side to side. And then I also like to just soften some of those so that you're really getting kind of a combination of different brush strokes and looks to your little leaves on your weeping willow. And the filbert brush is such a universal go-to brush. I like to use it for so many different things, and That's why I've chosen it today for this specific tutorial on how to paint different trees, so that you can see all the benefits and all the different ways you can use it to create leaves and shape and flow. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush out. And with a clean brush, I'm just going to give a little gentle sweep over some of these to make it look a little softer. It's all up to you when you're painting what kind of a look you're going for. If you want to have more texture, more definition. Okay, so the next tree I'm going to show you how to paint is a palm tree. I never get sick of showing you guys how to paint palm trees, and I love painting them. I love anything kind of tropical. So they are one of my favorites to paint for the tree trunk. And the first base, I'm going to be using the round brush. I'm going to get it a little bit wet, just with some water here. And I'm going to take some black and some brown and some black, burnt sienna, and yellow ochre. Okay, so I'm going to come in and sweep like this on a curve. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow ochre and just dab the left side. You can be a little bit more generous if you want, and then add these little lines for the tree trunk, leaving a little space and making your tree trunk a little bit wider there at the bottom. So I'm going to take a little bit of white with my yellow ochre now. Get a little bit there on the end. I'm going to add a little bit more of a highlight here. I'm going to rinse my brush out. And I'm going to add a little bit more burnt sienna and black. And from the left side, I'm going to kind of do the same thing that I did. Just pull, but pull in between those little lines. Okay, I'm going to work my way up. And we're going to switch over now to our filbert brush. Okay, and I'm going to take black to start. Black on the end of the brush. And we just want to create from the center, pull up, and then curl over. Very fun brush stroke. So you can add as many as you want. And then, without washing the brush off, it still has some black in there. Add some green to your brush. And we're going to push a little bit thicker now. And still continue with those little arch shapes. Now we're going to come right in front here, right over part of that tree trunk. pull, pull, pull. Got a little bit of the weeping willow yellow in there. And then let's just add a little one right there. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush up. Okay, now with a clean brush, I've dried these layers off. We're gonna come in and add some highlights. So I'm gonna take a little bit of white, light olive green, and some yellow. You want to have it on the end of your brush, and we're just going to add a few narrow lines, so just using the very end of the brush, and then just pull, 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 pull. I don't want all of my highlights to look the same, so I'm going to make some of them a little chunkier, fuller looking. Now you can apply this layer of paint to the wet. If your black and green was wet still, it'll still work. You might even just make a few more shades, but I kind of like doing it like this, just so that I can get give you guys a clearer instruction and you can see the difference. Now taking a little bit, if we just pull into a little bit of this sap green along with our yellow, we can make some brighter shades of green. And then we're adding different tones, including all those different tones of green in here. Now, depending on the lighting in if you're painting from a photograph or you're painting palm trees at night or morning or full daylight sun, it'll vary with the amount of different greens you're using, yellows, highlights, and shadows. So keep that in mind. I'm going to come in with a little bit of black and add a little bit more depth and shadow now. So just with a little bit of black, just feathering in. You can add these little palm leaves. You can do this with the fan brush too, but it's nice to show you different ways that you can do it. I like to give you guys the options, so you're not watching a video and thinking that's the only approach and way to do something. In fact, I've got quite a few videos on how to paint different things, and we just really focus on those things in each video. And there's lots of different types of trees in other videos as well. Now I'm just going to add, I've got a little bit of time left here and a lot of extra paint. I'm just going to take these three colors, light olive green, yellow, and white, and just add a little bit over the side of the path here. Well, let's make that a little darker by adding some of the sap green. I'm going to make some of these branches here. Now that everything's dry, I'll take a little bit of burnt sienna and black and make some of these branches a little more visible. Just Just adding a little something in the front here. And then a little bit of yellow ochre, burnt sienna, just on the end of my brush. I'll have a little bit of light reflecting on that branch right here. I'm going to take my filbert brush and just for a little bit of bonus content for you guys, we'll add a little bit of water behind this palm tree here, and maybe on either side or on behind this weeping willow. That would be pretty to have a little bit of water back here. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that blue and white and make a lighter shade than what I had for the background. Now normally I would say paint the water first and then your tree, if your tree's in front of that, you want to paint that after you paint the water. But this is just a spur of the moment video, unplanned. Just been spring cleaning and then wanted to take a break from that and come in my studio and paint a little something for you guys. You know, cleaning up the yard and looking at all the trees, and I just got thinking I would like to create a little tutorial today for you guys on how to paint a little bit extra white here on how to paint trees, specifically using the filbert brush and just a little liner brush or a little round brush. So all I'm doing is adding a little bit of light, little dabs here and there, little lines, brighter and brighter, to make our water stand out a little bit more. It's all about light and shadow. I'm going to add a little bit back here as well. I'm going to dust over these trees back here and set them even farther away. And now I'm going to make a light yellow for some brighter hints of sunlight, taking some more of my titanium white and a little bit of primary yellow. Just take a little bit of each color and I'm going to add a little bit more, be a little bit more generous with our yellow. Add a little bit to those trees. It all, like I said, it all depends on how much highlights that you want to add. So just little leaves or wild little weeds and stuff. I'm going to add a little bit more white, clean brush, and add some spaces and some clouds in here just to break that up a little bit. Up a little bit of black there. If this happens to you, you just push in the direction it came from rather than out. You just kind of push it back in there and then clean your brush off in between. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching this tutorial today and that you learned a lot about how to paint trees using a filbert brush. Take care, and I'll see you all very soon in another video. Bye!